Hello and welcome to part 3 of my series where we are looking at converting a hand knitting pattern into a knitting machine pattern. When we left each other at the end of part 2, we had finished basically transcribing the hand knitting pattern onto this Google Sheet and making a couple of changes to make it more knitting machine friendly. I have made some further changes, a couple of typos fixed I just want to make sure you're aware of. First one down here, this was just a little typo. It still knits 7 rows, but I put 7 in the wrong box. I put it in the measurements box, not the rows box, so I've changed that. The next thing is there's a couple of typos here. This one originally said break the yarn and put the carriage on the right. Of course, this shoulder is the right shoulder, this is the left shoulder, so it needs to be carriage on the left. And down at the front panel as well, I've done the same thing, so I've just changed that. The next thing I've changed is, instead of having one cell which says increase 1 stitch every 8 rows, I've put that on 2 separate lines, increase 1 stitch every 8 rows. Okay, so I can multiply up the stitches as well. I've done that with this one as well, increase 1 stitch every 10 rows. And then the final error is really subtle, but it's incredibly important. Of course, we're increasing 1 stitch at each end of the following in every 8 rows. And again, at each end at the following. In fact, I'm just going to copy and paste that. And that's really important because that is essentially multiplying the number of rows we'd have to knit by 2, and it gave me some real head scratching moments until I could work it out. Now then, let's carry on with the tutorial. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this entire table. Oops, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to copy this entire table and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so I now have 2 complete copies of the table. The next thing I'm going to do may seem a little bit strange, but if I go back to my stitch conversion, you can see that I have lied and I have pretended my tension swatch is exactly half of the tension swatch they're asking for, which will change my multiplier to 2, and that just means as I do my calculations I can quick check to see if it's correct by seeing if one number is twice the other. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is we're going to go all the way down here and we are going to delete. Actually, I won't delete it for the moment, I'll leave it in. Okay, so what I now need to do is I now need to multiply all of these stitches by the stitch conversion factor. Okay, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to, instead of 106, I'm going to go up to my formula bar and I'm going to put equals the one on this side, equals B3, okay, which doesn't change it a lot, but then I'm going to multiply it, star, which is times, and I'm going to go across to my stitch conversion box and put in that, press enter, okay, and it's a whole lot of nonsense which I will change in just a second. In fact, I'll change it now, which is to say I'm just going to make all of these accurate to 2 decimal places. Okay, there we go. Okay, so just so I can see, now you can see the conversion factors are not exact. That was 106, this is 212.02. I do realise, by the way, there aren't 200 stitches on a knitting machine. That's because I've put in silly tension swatch numbers just so I can see what's going on. Okay, now next important thing about this is if I just copy this down, not only will it go B3, B4, B5, B6, but it'll also go stitch conversions B7, B8, B9. I don't want it to do that. I want it to carry on using the same box. So what I'm going to do is put $signs before that one. And then when I copy it, let's see if I go copy and paste, you'll see that this one is B3 times the stitch conversions B7. And this one is B4, but still times stitch conversions B7. So if I go over here now, I can hover on that. I can drag this all the way down, and it will convert every single number by multiplying it by the stitch conversion factor. It will also fill in 0.00 in every box where there was nothing. Don't worry about that. We're going to sort that later, but this is going to look like an absolute mess for the moment. But chill, we're going to sort it out. Okay, next one, rows. We're going to do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to copy this and paste it there. But this time, instead of multiplying it by B7, if we go back and have a look, we actually want to multiply it by D7. So I'm just going to change that from B7 to D7. Okay. And then I can drag my little box all the way down and it will do all my conversions again. Now at this point, I need to tell you not to worry about the fact we're getting some odd decimal places. I know you can't knit 28.02 rows. Don't worry about that. We're coming to it. Now, this is where it gets a bit complicated, because this instruction reads that we have to carry on knitting stocking stitch until the whole piece measures 49 centimetres. And I don't want it to do that, okay? I want to knit until a certain row. So let's look at how we are going to convert this number into the appropriate number of rows. Well, if we go back and look at our stitch conversion, we can see that we've got 2.9 centimetres to 20 rows, and I want to know how many rows is 49 centimetres. Okay, so I need to know what number do I need to multiply that by to get 49. And the answer is I need to multiply it by 49 divided by 2.9. And then if I multiply that by 20 rows, I should get the correct number of rows. So I'm going to set this to equal to, open brackets, 49, it's that one, multiplied by my stitch conversion factor, sorry, my 2.9 centimetres, my apologies, like that. Okay, and let's see what that is. That's 139. Oh, hold on. No, sorry, it should be divided by, my apologies. And then I should multiply that by my 20 rows. It's per 20 rows, so it's times 20. Okay, and that gives 343 rows. Again, this is a stupidly large number of rows because I'm using teeny tiny stitches. Now, that's not quite it, okay, because that is 343.26 rows, but that is the whole number of rows that we've ever done, including the ribbing. So we've also got to take off, so I'm going to put brackets around this, and we're going to take off the amount of ribbing, okay, the rows we put in ribbing. So actually that's 315 rows. Last thing I'm going to do with this, because I'm going to reuse this formula a few times, is firstly that stitch conversion I am going to make absolute, and again the ribbing I'm going to make absolute, so that even when I shift it, it won't change those ones. Okay, so that's absolutely fine. We are then going to knit on until the whole piece measures. Oh, hold on. Continue knitting until row counter reads. Okay, we've also got to do this one as well. So let's copy and paste that. And I'm going to copy and paste this. Let me just double check. This is saying D15, 51 centimetres, okay, and then it's doing the same conversion, but it's still minusing the ribbing from the beginning, so that is correct. All right, there we go. By the way, notice there aren't very many rows in here, so you know, it may well be that this doesn't happen terribly often. That's as may be. Right, we then have to do exactly the same thing for this one. Okay, so this one is exactly the same as this one. That was just using, that's just doing the other side. Okay, and then we've got to go and do the front. And again, the front is going to be exactly the same. It's shorter, so we're going to only have 281 rows. And again, exactly the same here, and exactly the same here. So that, although it's a slightly complicated calculation, is that. That's all done. Hooray, well done us. Now, the next section is to have a look at this bit, our 45 rows. And again, we're going to do very much the same thing. We're going to copy and paste in here. But this time, we don't want to remove I5 because that is the number of rows on the front and back. We want to remove the number of rows on the sleeves. It may well be the same number, but nevertheless, we want to remove I56. Okay, so we're going to change that to I56. And there you go. We need to carry on until the row counter reads 287. From there on in, all of our numbers are correct. This does now, oh, by the way, just so you know, look, I've changed it so it says until row counter reads a certain number of rows. Okay. Now, this looks an absolute mess, but don't worry, because what we're going to do is we are going to doing some calculations there. Let's just remove those. We are going to tidy this up significantly, and we're also going to deal with this ridiculous decimal system in the next part. But before I do that, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a column to the right, okay, which I am going to leave blank, okay, and I'm going to do something a little bit cunning. I'm going to put equals so that I have got a function started, and I'm going to use the max function, max, okay, max, open brackets, and I'm going to select these two things here, okay, and that is going to select the bigger number out of the two. So for each of these things, there is one number which is useful and one number which is 0, and it's going to select the bigger number out of the two. So that's that for all of them. Then I'm going to go down, and anything where they're both 0, like this carriage on right, I'm just going to delete it out. Okay, so any time where this is delete, where this the right hand column is 0, I'm just going to delete it. Okay. I've just noticed, by the way, that's a whole piece measures in centimetres. That needs to be rows, and that's a until row counter. There you go, that's better. Okay, let's delete anywhere which is 0. Delete that. Delete these. Delete that. Delete all of this. Okay, and then if I hide these three, hide columns, and resize that, we should now have ourselves a calculated pattern, which admittedly we absolutely cannot follow because it asks us to do things like knit 81.02 stitches. Okay, I appreciate that's ridiculous, but we're going to do something about that next time. Okay, sorry, I'm just going to make that nice in the box. Okay, we are going to do something about that next time. Okay, and the other thing I'm now going to go back is I'm now going to go back and change my tension swatch, okay, to something that's slightly more reasonable. So let's say it's 28.7 centimetres, and if you go back, we've now got different numbers, and it's all going to work. Okay. By the way, just in a preview for next time, you might think you can just get rid of the decimal places, and that will give you a perfect knitting pattern. I regret to say it won't, and I'll explain why next time. That seems like a lovely idea, and we can use it as some help but not in fact the complete answer. In any case, I hope that was helpful, and I shall see you next time. Goodbye.